Today's episode is brought to you by New PC Hype.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I'm your host, Blevins. Joining me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, my man. I am just basking in the awesome power of the new PC. It is built. It is done. It only took 10 hours to build
Nice.
it. And by only, I mean I had a migraine. I was nauseous. I was falling asleep in my chair when I was done. Like the last one or two little steps, I was literally like messaging one of Jaylee's friends, Windows 98. I don't think he listens, but shout out to him. It's the second time he's been a sounding board for me during builds and edit, and fixing my PC when it broke. I think I talked to him a little bit. And I was just like running things by him. Like, is this supposed to be plugged in? I can't, my brain's not working anymore. It just is supposed to have something in it. And he, yes, yes, it is. Deathflow. But everything's in. We are good to go. The only real hiccup, the fancy RGB fans weren't supported by the motherboard. So I'm on the hunt for an adapter or something like that. So shout out to anybody here listening that is experienced builder. If you've got experience with RGB equipment, you'll know about the connector that goes into the motherboard to power the lights or whatever. But hit me up on Discord or Twitter at HNP Deathblow. Let me know. I'm definitely looking to get them working, because otherwise I spent $5-10 too much on each fan. Yeah, and I just might as well make it look as good as it can. But yeah, there's a couple cosmetic things that need done, but it's working, it's operational. Nice. And the content can start to flow. I still gotta learn how to make it all, but that process will be underway shortly. So
you can at least start recording the raw stuff, which is
yes, good. Yeah, that's what I really need to do is get my recording software set up so that just anytime I'm playing, I'm filling up the 3 terabytes of hard drive space with just raw game footage that I can use for background. Yeah, that's
you do need some B-roll.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So that is definitely good. So make sure you guys pester Deathblow, let him know.
Yeah, if content's not coming out, it's just purely on me. So if you're not seeing additional YouTube stuff, you should start to see some extra Twitter stuff. Maybe I might basically I want to start clipping and promoting the episodes and things like that. So when we tweet about them, you're getting a little taste. We're giving you some, a funny one-liner, or, something 10 to 15 seconds long. And then if I'm doing that, why not put it on TikTok?
And get the clickbait stuff like, I can't believe you just said that about that team, Deathblow.
And now
See?
we have
now we
what we're going to use for this episode.
Hashtag not scripted.
As soon as you started doing it, I'm just like, well, I'm using it. I don't care what he says. Because otherwise I'm not going to know what to pick. But yeah, and if you guys do have any moments from the show, if you're watching live, if you're just in, clip stuff. Use the Twitch fund, clip it, send it to us. This was really funny. Would really appreciate it. It would help me let you guys know what you think's funny, because what you think's funny is more important than what I think's funny. But what I think's funny is all I have to go on when I make them. So
true.
Yeah,
and Deathblow hates everything. So
it would be. Oh, I really do. I really do.
And so I always, whenever I'm talking with someone and I'm like talking about a show or something, I'm like, oh yeah, my buddy Deathblow really likes the show, which means it's got to be good because he hates everything.
Listen, if you want a yes man to tell you how good your content is, send it to any number of content creators. There'll be more. If you want honest to God constructive criticism on something, what could be better, what I do or don't, I have no problems giving my feedback on that. And it's the only thing that's worthwhile. So it's what I give out by default. So yeah. True. I'm a little harsh, but I think it's always constructive. I do work hard to make sure it's always constructive, even if there's a little bit of attitude in it.
I was gonna say constructive means I want to quit doing it, right? That's what that means. Oh, what? Wait,
I feel like
what?
we're referencing something specific, and
No,
I'm lost. Okay.
no, there's nothing specific. That's the joke. But let's jump right in here into at least our normal pre-show. We're not even at the point where we would normally get on a tangent, and we've already gone on 2 tangents. So let's talk about what we did specifically this week. I know obviously you built the PC,
Hey,
Deathblow, but if
I'm covered. What did you do?
oh, what did I do? Just been playing TFT, man. Lots of TFT. Got some new announcements there. Legends of Runeterra announcements. Open beta the 24th for anyone who's looking to play that. But besides that, just waiting for stuff to start, man. We're like right in the eve of like esports season. It's coming soon, and
Very soon.
I guess this is kind of like the calm before the storm. So I should probably enjoy the amount of time I have to do things, but because it's only going to go down. But yeah, it's good. It's good stuff, at least so far. So no complaints. But let's move on and talk a little bit about some housekeeping. So we actually got a special, not a special, but well, kind of like a special um, announcement right before we were going to start the show, and that is that Foul Play is officially coming back this week on Wednesday. So tomorrow, if you're a day one podcast listener, Wednesday the 15th, Hebe and the gang are coming back and are going to be doing your fantasy Overwatch League show on the High
Hebe,
Noon.
not DB. Hebe Chibi and Tepoyama, yeah, are
Yes.
coming back to bring you that show. Just wanted to clarify because I heard DB a little bit.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I said Hebe. I at least meant to say Hebe.
Sure.
Hebe, not DB. Hebe GB, not DB.
Yes.
Will be bringing you your Fantasy Overwatch League show. And I know they've got there's some new platforms. There's a mobile platform apparently. I've been getting little tricklings in my ear. So definitely going to be running a High Noon league. And once they get all that set up, make sure you guys listen to that show. It does have its own feed, FOWL Play, on there. And if you can't find it, just let us know. We will get you that link and whatnot. But make sure you are following there so that you can be in with their community and the leagues that they're running. I don't know what they're going to do in terms of fan leagues, but we'll certainly have a High Noon podcast open league if anyone wants to join that. I'm sure you can hit up me, Deathblow, or Hebe for the info on that, like we always do. We always have one going, and there's always the smack talk, and it's always fun to do. So definitely looking forward to get back into the swing of things with that too, because it's just part of the season, right? It's like Christmas season. Like it's not just about the day of, right? It's all the other things. It's the
I will
holiday
not be
season.
ready for opening weekend until I've done at least 3 drafts for my fantasy Overwatch League teams.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the only way it can go down. It's a carryover from football. I don't plan on quitting anytime soon. But yeah, we do have special channels set up in the Discord specifically for fantasy things. There's a fantasy mailbag channel in there. You can get your questions in for Tipo and Hebe to answer them on a week-to-week basis. There's also fantasy league formation.
Yes.
So if you're trying to get into a league, you want to join one, you can start one there. You can keep an eye on it, waiting for people to say they've got spots.
Yep.
We were able to get in, I think, 6 or 7 leagues each without really
easily
too hard to find them from that channel specifically. So you will have no problems getting in if it's something you're interested in. Make sure you do, and let's make sure that the leagues that form in our Discord stay active. Let's not be those guys. Let's not quit when we're losing. Let's keep at it. You can be the playoff spoiler. I had a 1-win fantasy football team this year, and it was my favorite league to play all season long. Because I took the Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen from my 9-year-old nephew right in his face, and then I smack talked him about the pick right after I made it, and my team name all season was #1 Josh Allen fan, and he was the only person I beat on the entire season. It was literally the perfect year, and I was like 1-11 or something like that. It was
Yeah,
awful,
that's
but I
awesome.
couldn't have scripted it any better. It can be that way, and
That's awesome.
much as
And
well. Yeah.
and let me set the record straight, Deathblow. I quit while I'm winning. Okay.
Hey, I wasn't directing it at you. I was just looking at you by default because you're the only human on the call with.
True, true, true.
Also, I quit plenty last year.
Yeah,
The platforms were a problem, okay? But
yeah,
yeah,
it's true.
they're getting better and better each year. So keep at it,
You
guys. It's getting there.
you are true. I am the only human on the call, but we do have. Okay, that's never happening again. I did not realize that was pitched so high. Bit ruined, show ruined, canceled. But we do have Fantasy League Robot who will be back after I fix that, maybe. God, that was terrifying. But yes, make sure you're checking out that. And also, guys, make sure you're checking out Blackwatch Report. They, of course, have a brand new episode. Came out last week. They're going to have another one this week talking about Tier 2 contenders, all that good stuff for Overwatch. You're going to be hearing from them today in our segments as we've been continuing them. They've been a huge, huge help to us and helping us provide a little bit of color and context to these players that have been called up that we just don't, we just
And
we don't
dissenting
know about.
opinions. How many
Sure.
times do you want to hear me say that somebody from contenders has to prove themselves before I buy in? Thank you to Thorn and Kyle for,
Right.
for giving them a different voice with a
Right.
different take, because it's static for me. I don't believe in you until you do it here.
It's true. We're not the contendees truthers,
No.
but they certainly are because they
Yes.
know and they see it every day. So
Yes.
they have a better perspective on it, which is why we tap and lean on them for that. It's just not what we're doing. It's not our expertise, but it is theirs, and we are forever grateful and eternal for them for doing that. So let's move on here, and let's look into a little bit of. There we go. Got some news stories this week. I'm gonna skip this one for now, and we'll talk about the new signings and some other changes as well. So, Soul Dynasty is continuing its transition into becoming the old London Spitfire by
Soul Spitfire sounds better than London Spitfire.
Soul Spitfire does sound good, actually. Got that alliteration, but they are picking up Bedosin. Now, Deathblow, are you Bedosin on this? Nope, didn't work.
The foul play memes are trying to
or
make
are
their
you
way
XQC
We've got to
later?
claim we've got to claim the ones we want before they can
Right.
Listen, this is a solid signing to me, right? When we looked at what London was going to do, we knew they had to do something this year, and we thought the pieces they would build around or would be Gesture Prophet and Bedosin. Sorry if that just made a noise. I accidentally punched my mic. But
it wasn't that bad.
Okay, good. But instead, Soul's going to build around these pieces. They jacked literally the best parts of this roster to a man. The three that I thought were unmovable for London, and now they're building around them. So this is a piece to the puzzle to tell you perhaps why Jaehong didn't stick around. We thought he might have stayed with Toby for a while there.
Mm-hmm.
So a late announcement. Obviously, it had to be done after the release of the players and things like that. But I mean, Gesture and Prophet were forever ago, so he could have been involved in that. And to me, this shores up the one spot that I thought may have been the weakest, or at least the least penciled
Solid,
in is really good. In flex support, creative was what they had. And I don't know a ton about him to really judge. And then there's that unknown factor, that wishy-washy, if we, how good is he going to be? And that's out the window, because now we know we're looking at probably the second best Zenyatta player in Overwatch League. And we're looking at a top 5 Ana player in Overwatch League. And there's not been a role I've really seen Bedosin struggle at or really kind of show much of a downward trajectory on, I should say. Like even guys like Gesture, who we're really high on, like, you know, there's weaknesses there.
Sure.
There's characters he plays better, and that's not
Mm-hmm.
something I really think I've seen from Bedosin. So I think this is a great signing. It really rounds out this roster. I was very high on them, if you'll remember from our preview last week or the week before.
Mm-hmm.
And this is only bumping them up another couple of wins in my book. So I'll have to adjust them a little bit from what I put them at previously. This is why we're waiting on Chengdu, because we think there's going to be announcements and they make a big difference. We were trying to avoid this, but yeah, it was definitely unavoidable to an extent. So good for Seoul, good for Seoul's fans, great for Bedosin. I think he's staring at a championship roster when he walks into work every morning. So,
Well, I
championship caliber.
right. Well, I mean, literally half the players have a championship.
That's fair.
So.
I guess that's true.
And to that point, actually, this is an interesting transition into what Sideshow tweeted about. So his tweet says, lots of people will be elated about the signing in reference to Bedosin, but I think it just makes no sense at all. If Seoul run Bedosin, they've signed London, but with a worse off-tank and a more consistent DPS partner for profit. You're importing a culture of apathetic regular seasons. That's an interesting take because I don't... It's not untrue, right?
Like, it's not untrue. There is maybe an apathy to the regular season that came with London, but I don't know that it was wanting. Like, to me, it wasn't apathy. It was like Birdring sucks. Like, end of story. Like, to me, it was honest to God that simple. I thought he was a gaping wound in their roster, and sure, not every team. Listen, the Atlanta Reign can't have an Atlanta Reign season 1 every single year.
Right.
Those players will have heart attacks by the time they're 26 years old. That was nuts. Okay. You need a bit of that even keeled. You need a little bit of that calm and that lack of panic. And there's definitely some of that to be worried about with what Sideshow's saying. But to me, a coaching staff can do wonders. They can just completely break that up. No. You're on Seoul now. On Seoul, we work hard. We're giving it 100% all the time. You can instill that in players. That to me, if it was a mentality problem, it was organizational, not on the players as individuals. And yeah, so I don't personally share that concern. It's definitely needs to be considered, and he's right to mention it and talk about it. It is the other side to the coin. There's no doubt the off tank got worse. Fury is a beast. He's an absolute animal. He's the one that needed to, the one that maybe got away here in this scenario. But it's 50% of the roster. To say they signed London, I can just as easily say London completely disappeared. Right? Like that they're just not. If you signed them lockstep and brought their mentality in, then I don't know. That's 3 of 9 players on the roster. So how does that dominate the culture? How does that dominate the locker room's attitude? I don't know.
Right.
It only takes one bad seed. It's certainly possible it happened.
Yeah.
And you can just bench Bedosin. If it happens again, you can just bench 1 or 2 of these guys. I mean, don't profit, but you have Marvel there to fill in for Gesture if mentality becomes a problem. You've got creative for Bedosin. I don't know. I like it. It doesn't have to work, but I like it.
Right. I think Sideshow does bring up a good point. Maybe he goes a little. Maybe you're importing a culture of apathetic regular seasons. Maybe you are, in terms of that's what you brought in. But given that, if you're going to use that logic of you just imported what they were, you also imported a championship team. Right. You can. It works for the good. It works for the bad. And I think he's probably being more hyperbolic for the sake of the tweet and getting some traction on it and to spark a discussion. I don't think it's
making a point. He's making a point.
Making a point. I like it, and I think it is a good sort of bringing you back to center, because you look at this team and it's like, you bring in these championship players. Yeah, these guys are good, but it's like, look at London last year. They were fine. They were a decent team, but they weren't what I think that London last year. I would rate Seoul higher than I rated London last year. even though there's a lot of similarities. And I think that you can take, and I've seen it happen in, obviously always bring back our past experiences. I've seen this in like summer basketball leagues where I used to do a traveling league. So during the year I would play with the players that went to the same school as me, but in the summer we would take a bunch of players from around the area and we would have like a super team essentially to like the best players on the different teams to play in the summer league to get better
Yeah,
and to learn.
you'd bring them water and stuff. Yeah, it was
Yeah, I would. But you have these players who you have a player taking a player who is the top dog at these schools. So the school I went to was the bigger of the schools that we pulled from, which is if you know where I'm from, that is weird to believe. But we would take these like farm town kids who had really good players on their team, but they're like, they're big man on campus, they're top dog, but you bring them into this super team where they're like maybe the third best player, or there's other players who can compete with them, and when they say something, it's not just immediately like, oh well, of course sir, we bow down to you and your ability to dunk the basketball. It's like, no, we're all there, except for me, of course.
Water boys don't have to dunk.
Right, I can dunk that water bottle though. I can dunk a donut into that water bottle.
There, right into the
dunk,
milk.
Dunk it. There we go. We got there.
We were on the same page.
Okay. But on a serious note, you take the point is you take someone who had a mindset or an opinion or a philosophy or a culture in this case of something on their old team where they were in the environment they had, the coaches they had, the support staff. You put them in a different place with a different organization, different coach, different players on the team. The dynamics shift. People can change, and if you're put into a different situation, not everyone is always going to be hot-headed. If you, like you said, it takes one bad seed. It also takes one guy who really, really cares about the team to inspire them to actually care about the regular season, to actually push them to go further. They're going to be in their home country. There's going to be way more of a fan base locally. That is going to be huge for them.
Fan pressure too.
Yeah, so much there. And I think that these players did not take that lightly. They know from playing in Apex, like they know what that is and they want that. And they know that they're going to only get more of that fame and fortune and notoriety if they do well in their own country. So, but I really do think it can change. So I do think that what Sideshow said does do a good job at tempering the expectations for this, which I think, honestly, for me, really puts it into perspective a little bit. But I do think he's being a little bit hyperbolic. And if you're a Soul fan, I don't think you have to be, you don't have to be worried about what Sideshow is saying. I think it's all good, but maybe it's not the super team.
Yeah, you've got the High Noon stamp of approval to just be blindly optimistic about what the Soul Dynasty are doing over there, because I really think the ideal, the perfect, the best coach for an Overwatch League team would debunk that issue in literally the first day. Those guys would, like, if that was me, right, in my head, it's the way it would go. It is the first day. The attitude would be defined. That we wouldn't be logging in that first day, right? It would all be getting everybody on the same page, mentality. Honest to God, if it got them hating me and on the same page or whatever, like, I'm that coach. I would be that coach. Like, I wouldn't be a player coach. My players might not like me very much. They'd love my assistant coaches.
They love your assistant coaches, and they'd love the trophy. They'd love the trophies that they see when they walk in.
They would, right. It's about respect. It's about trust. It's not about being friends. Yeah. And so to me, anyways, talk about tangents.
Yeah.
But a really, really good coach squashes that mentality problem to me very early in the process. So I think we don't know if they have a good coach. We'll find out soon, but I think you're fine to just be blindly optimistic about this.
Yep. Another signing here for Paris. We've got FD God has joined the Paris Eternal. Stevie, do we have anything on FD God?
Well, a little bit, and it's in the Paris Eternal section since we're covering them today, so we'll save it for that.
Yes. Yes, we will. We've got them. We got it covered. Okay, last piece of signing news before we get into the wrapper for the news section. The Valiant have signed Rain and Gig, and they've also rebranded from John Deere to the UCLA Bruins. We talked about this before. And yeah, I mean, they kind of explained why they did the change, like those colors, the baby blue and yellow, or baby blue and gold, kind of resonates with Southern California, which I'll take them at their word. It is like the exact same branding, coloring as the UCLA Bruins, which obviously is a big institution in LA. So I mean, I guess good on them for that. I don't know much more about the cultural significance of those colors in LA, but if there's
Sure.
something there, then I'll okay.
Yeah, I'm the same way about this one. I liked the other colors because I am used to seeing the Packers, so it's not
Right.
jarring to me to see John Deere colors.
Hmm.
I'm not used to seeing the UCLA Bears or whoever the
I think it's the Bruins. Maybe I'm
Bruins.
wrong.
Yeah, UCLA. I'm not used to seeing UCLA play games. I'm not used to seeing these colors in action, so they're a little weird to me.
Yeah.
Neither is a color palette that's pleasing on the eye. It's just, are you used to one? And I
Right.
was used to the old one. I'm not used to this one. Um, like you said, if it resonates with Southern California, great. It was a great choice. They don't make them much differently than Southern Californians than they did when they made you and me, Blevins.
Right.
So we wouldn't have any idea on that. To me, I don't know, not that great. Not objectionably bad to my colorblind eyeballs, like the cotton candy teams are
Right.
sometimes, but so be it. Yeah, well, not my team. I don't care. Thanks for leaving me with green.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I like slightly prefer the new one just because I like blue better than green, and I just didn't like I never liked the Packers branding, and I never liked the John Deere. I just never liked it. Uh, so this is slightly better to me.
I know where you grew up. You should love John T.
That's true. That is true. I should, but I don't. Uh, but yeah, it's all right. I just like it's compared to, so we've seen two teams rebrand their colors. Not re I guess rebranding might not be the right word for it because they're not changing the team name or anything, but they're changing the colors. And this just seems like tiers below the Florida rebrand. Like that was just like look at it and just clap and like this is yes, thank you. You took one of the worst color palettes and made it into like a top 5 one, I think. At least in terms of coolness. And this was like you took a like mid bottom tier and kept it a mid bottom tier one.
Yeah,
Like,
the one that was kind of hard to look at, and you gave us one that's kind of hard to look at. But it is what it is.
yeah. It makes me think of Big Bird and Sesame Street. Also, it looks a lot like Big Bird like standing in front of like a like a blue sky in the I don't know. It also looks a lot like it's like the inverse of the Boston colors too. So it's like those look really similar.
Well, now I hate it. Thanks.
Right. So I just like I feel like if I'm gonna rebrand something, I want to rebrand away from the colors of another team, not closer to them.
Right? Can you imagine if they'd rebranded to black and red?
Right. I'd be like, well, this is just silly. So I don't know. That's all I got to say about that. Moving on to the last piece of news here, we got the confirmation and tweet from Semler that he is not going to be returning to the caster desk for Overwatch League Season 3. Death, we talked about this a little bit in the pre-show and some of the implications of it, but what's your initial take on Semler making the leave?
Well, it stinks. We had such an awesome couple name with Sexler. We
True.
got Hex to approve it on the podcast, so
True.
I mean we had that going for us. It's rough. Listen, I really grew to love Semler and that casting duo. That said, it makes a lot of sense to me from his perspective. He came in, and if you guys remember, he didn't know Overwatch that well when he
True.
started
It was a
casting
little bit
Overwatch.
rough at the beginning.
It was rough. There was a lot of feedback about it. Reddit, everybody was very quick to comment
Yeah.
on it. He learned it very quickly. He got up to speed. He lived up to the standard of all the other world class casters that are there with him on the production. No issues there whatsoever. I don't think he ever fell in love with the game. You've
No.
got guys like Hex and ZP who came up with this game, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were known from other places, what have you, but I mean, from day one, and they're still here, and there's very clearly an affinity and a love for the game of Overwatch, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not something I really think ever clicked for Semler.
Right.
He's already back involved with Call of Duty, right? That's where he came
CSGO.
from. CS:GO. I'm sorry. He's already back involved with
Mm-hmm.
CS:GO. And I've heard him do CS:GO content, and I think he was better at it. It's his game. It's his love.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, if me and you started a CS:GO podcast tomorrow, it would suck. It would be terrible. We
Sure
don't
would.
like that. We don't love the game.
Right.
It's just it's the way it goes. I don't think his heart was fully in it. I think he saw it as a great opportunity, something he wanted to give a
Yeah.
try to, and it just maybe didn't click with him. In his statements, he said, "This isn't. I don't have the same issues Monty does. This isn't tacking onto that. This isn't."
Mm-hmm.
He made an effort to separate his leaving from the other people.
Right.
The articles that get written just list the four people, like, even though Puckett is trying to support his wife, and you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, that's a negative sign for the league. So you're going to hear plenty of that narrative that, oh, this is the fourth one. It's, probably you start to hear the word exodus, but it's all, just try to remember, there's not a single sport in the world that its success hinges on the casting talent.
Right.
It might hinge on the quality of the casting talent. It's
Right.
not to say that Overwatch League can't be seriously damned by these guys leaving. If they bring in chumps that do a terrible job, then it's going to be really, really bad. But
Mm-hmm.
if they bring in casters that can live up to that level, and do a very good job,
Right.
and be professional, and then we're going to be completely fine. So just another tall glass of calm down juice for Reddit, I think, is in order.
Yeah.
Not that I've even seen them freaking out about it, because Semler did really say, hey, I don't, you might see me at a homestand. You might, whatever. This isn't me wanting to run away. This is just me wanting to run back to the thing I love, is really the impression from it. So really, really happy for Semler, and dying to know who's going to be with our boy Hex.
Right. We were talking about it before, and it's like, is that duo going to get changed? Is Hex going to be with someone else? Who is that person? We right now we have an odd number of people right now casting, so we don't know if there's going to be a call up, or if they're going to do mix ups. Maybe they'll do, I doubt they would do a tri-cast, but maybe they'll do something. They'll have different caster duos, maybe, might depend on the
Right now
travel schedule.
they're 4 leaving, 3 joining, with Jake and then Sideshow and Bren as casters as well. So yeah, definitely an opening. I would expect them to sign a new one. So maybe some desk talent as
that
well.
would I would expect that as well. So definitely, again, I mean, we kind of belabored the point in the previous episode, so we won't go into it again. But another point to look at, and take it how you will, and interpret it however you'd like. But we'll leave it there. And if you want to hear our takes on that whole scenario in general, listen to the last 2 episodes where we talked about that at length. But enough about that. Let's move on, and let's... There we go. We have 4 more teams to talk about in our preseason preview. We're going to start with the Paris Eternal. Death, take us away.
Yeah, so starting things off, they released Shadowburn, Danye, LH Cloudy, and Finzi from the roster. They brought in Sparkle and Hanbin And XZI, they acquired No Smite from Hangzhou in a trade for, I believe, cash considerations. Don't know the exact details there. They also signed Smex and FD God. Sparkle, if you don't know, you've been living under a rock and not paying any attention to contenders because even we've heard of this guy. DPS from Element Mystic. He does not turn 18 until May 31st. So it won't be the Sparkle show straight out of the gate here for the Paris Eternal. Hanbin, similarly, also from Element Mystic, turns 18 a little bit sooner. We get him on February 20th. They also did sign FD God, as you mentioned. He is a French main support from Young and Beautiful. If you're a tier 2 boomer like me, you'll probably remember him better from Orglis and Hungry back in the day. To me, not likely to replace Cruz as the starting main support here. So he's going to serve as the backup and a token Frenchman for a team that certainly feels obligated to keep a couple of those around. Yeah, looking at their last year performance, they were 11-17 overall record. They were the 14th seed in playoff contention. A team that I think I'd have to double check to say with supreme confidence, but if I'm remembering correctly, started hot like every single stage and then completely fell off by the end of it. So a very interesting year for Paris fans. Always found a way to get themselves hyped up a little bit as the stages kicked off, and then went back to where everybody else kind of thought it would be, maybe by the end of the stage.
Oh, but they're the great. They're the
57
best goats team in the world, Death.
the Goats champs. Good for 14th. But 57% win rate on Escort to 45% on Hybrid, 36 for Assault, and 28 for Control. Losing records on Ilios, Li Jiang, Busan, Nepal, Ilios. I listed Ilios twice. Numbani, Kings Road, Junkertown, Rialto, Hanamura, Horizon, Lunar Colony, and Temple of Anubis. So, yeah, we won't have too long to wait here for Sparkle and Hanbin to join the roster, but let's see what Tier 2 has to say about these two poggers.
The Blackwatch Report.
Paris Eternal pulling up Zizzy from Element Mystic along with his counterpart Sparkle. Sparkle's not going to be active right away, but that's the big signing here for the Paris Eternal. Sparkle looked phenomenal on the Doomfist for Element Mystic in the Gauntlet, coming in alongside of Hanbin. Essentially, Paris Eternal here picked apart the champions of the Gauntlet. It was kind of to be expected, but other than that, Hanbin not being able to start the season, we're going to see Smex kind of taking that tank role, probably filling in until Hanbin becomes of age. What are your thoughts on these four here, Kyle?
So Xe, I think, will be pretty strong. I think he's the primary hit scan role. Sparkle will probably start once he turns of age. Hanbin, probably same thing as well, but I think Smex is a player that a lot of people have been talking up. I think he has a lot of potential to be really, really good. He seems to never really been able to really catch a break on a good roster since World Cup last year for Team UK. But I think this roster overall is significantly improved by these Element Mystic pickups.
Yeah, this team is giving me early Toronto Defiant vibes, which, if you remember early Toronto Defiant, they're pretty good. Stage 1 playoff contenders. They had sort of that classic mixed roster. They took a core from, I believe it was Rocks Orcas, if I recall correctly. They had a couple other players.
I think there were two teams shuffled together.
Yeah, I think one of them was Rocks Orcas, and correct. One was I don't recall what the other team was, but it was kind of okay, we're going to take some top talent from some contenders teams, some contenders Korea teams, put them in here. Have they obviously had Neko, the veteran from Boston, as well as Envy and a few other veterans from other teams, and really they they had early success in stage 1, and then it really kind of tapered off. They had a mediocre, I believe, 3-4 stage in stage 2, if I recall correctly, followed by, I know we had 0-7 one of the, I think it was 3-4, 3-4, and then 0-7. So really fell off after a while, and I think
Toronto was 5-2 in the first.
Yeah, 5-2, then 3-4, 3-4, 0-7.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Gotcha.
I think. I could be
I think
wrong.
it was worse than that, but yeah, we'll go deeper into that when
Might have been a 2-5 at one point, but regardless, yes, we will talk about that in a little bit. But I'm getting that feeling. Paris, they made a lot of moves, which I think is good if you're a Paris fan. Obviously they didn't go. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, this is the EU team." Well,
God, that's gone.
That's gone, and I think this goes back to another point that we've harkened on for a while, is that the regionalization of the players on your team is just silly. If you want to be taken seriously and be a serious contender, just pick the best players for your team. Doesn't matter where they're from. It'd be silly to say it about baseball or football. It's silly to say it about Overwatch. So I'm glad that they're moving towards that. It seems like a lot of the teams have kind of moved towards that. Like, every team is a mixed roster. We're going to have a language of the team. We're going to be, formalizing that. So a lot of changes for a lackluster in season 2 team. It was their opening season, obviously, as an expansion team for season 2, and they learned a lot and they changed a lot. So that's, if I'm a Paris Eternal fan, I'm pretty optimistic about this team right now.
Yeah, they also brought over the Rush, which was the head coach for Mystic as well. So there's some coaching staffs brought in. There's an absolute unit on this coaching staff. Aid is a familiar face.
Yes.
You'll remember. He's on this coaching staff. So I like a lot of what Paris has done here. The Blackwatch guys talked a little bit about XZ, whatever. We'll figure it out. I will believe this team benches soon when I see it. Is my only comment on him.
Right.
Not who's better, who should start.
Right.
I'm not a Soon supporter. I just believe Soon will be starting. I don't think the coaching staff has the ability to do that to their fan base. We will see. I hope he does. But yeah, I'll believe it when I actually see the man not on the stage for this team. So let's see. Looking overall, I think No Smite was a big acquisition for them. He should give them some great stability at the main tank position. They obviously struggled there last season with LH Cloudy and Ben Best. Let's talk about some unrealistic things here. And we'll get into the realistic win total estimate predictions here in a minute. I want to know, Blevins, in your wildest of daydreams where you want them to be successful, exactly how bright can the Paris Eternal shine with Sparkle here? What's the high end of your range of outcomes?
Ooh, the high end. I mean, I can only take the. I guess I can take the what people are saying about a player that I haven't really seen play much. With some amount of certainty. I remember before season 1, we heard from multiple sources that the striker kid is real good. Keep an eye on him, and obviously in season 1 that sort of paid off. The Jonak connection, knowing about him early on as well. So, you have a player like Sparkle. Maybe they can. Maybe they do have the ability. They come in as a fresh-faced 18-year-old looking to change the league. Sparkle certainly could be a dominator, and we've seen. Granted, Jonak was supported by an entire team of all-star caliber players, but we've seen players like Jonak where it's one player, they make a difference. It really could be something. In my wildest dreams, I think I could maybe give them 17 or 18 wins if they really pop off, which would be, 18-10 would be the highest I would go with
18
them.
18-10 would have been the 4 seed last season.
4 seed? Ugh.
Yeah.
It's tough for me to imagine that, but I guess if you're giving them every single benefit of the doubt, and here's the thing, I'll temper that myself, is that I don't expect a we've gotten to a point where there's a certain amount where we're really starting to see synergy of teams and organization and veterans. We're seeing actual veterans now. Players have played for 2 years. The game has been out for 5 years, not even. It's been released for under that. So people are coming up on, they've been playing.
We're 4 years old, right? And
right, 2015.
The show's older than the game.
Yeah, so we're going to be having these 2-year veterans have been playing in the Overwatch League for half of the life of the game itself. So I think 1 year of being a veteran is certainly helpful. 2 years, we're starting to get to a real point where maybe we'll definitely start to see this more in the coming years, but the veteran status is actually going to be worth a lot here. And a team that's coming in, that yes, they did make a lot of changes. They did make a lot of needed changes and are trying to improve upon a lackluster season. But I guess I don't see a team coming in like that, like Vancouver did again, and really making a big splash. So I think 17 and 11 is my highest. If putting them at 4th seed, I can't do that.
Yeah, I'm pretty close to that with you. I would say their high water, really, if I was a Paris fan, really hope to see is a clone of the Atlanta Reign season last year. To me, Sparkle's in the wrong position to solo carry the team and make them into an all-around top-tier competitor. It's certainly possible, but in order for that to happen, it has to come from the tank line. No Smite has to be better than what I think he is going into the season in order for that to be the case. Specifically as well, I think Hanbin, am I getting... Hold on. Am I losing my mind? Yeah, Hanbin. Handman. Hanbin, I think also on the off-tank position needs to also be right up there among the best, right? He needs to be there. Choi Hyo Bin. I do think the tank line remains the most important unit on an Overwatch team. And so specifically there, I'm worried they have the just sheer skill, the star power at those positions to really truly become an elite team. I don't really see it. That said, they've got a ton more talent than they used to. They're going to scare people. They're going to win some games they shouldn't win throughout the season. I have them much, much better. And I think this is a team that we all really, really need to pencil in for 2021 consideration for elite. Once they can address those other positions, they've got a better idea of what they have, and these new acquisitions make some adjustments from there. I think then they're really, really going to take off. This is probably a playoff team looking at the roster to me, like, higher, somewhere in the play-in conversation, if I had to guess. I do think they have the upward mobility to sneak in, like Atlanta said, like I was mentioning earlier. But yeah, so I'm gonna go with, I don't want to call them a 500 team because I think that goes against what I just said. I'm going to call them 15 and 13, but I don't know that lines up with what I've given the other teams. So I reserve the right to maybe tweak it before I put them into my power rankings.
We're just going to reserve that right. We're just going to broad stroke that, because I'm not looking at what we rated everything else, because that would definitely affect an impact. But
I'm like trying to use this to build my power rankings, just because even if I don't publish those, I just want to see what doing it this way gives me for the power rankings. But yeah, so I'm going to call them 15 and 13. That might be comparative to the other teams. I don't know. I've got them as a solid team, like I said, squarely in the play-in conversation, but I just don't yet see that dominant, like, even if Sparkle's every bit of what they said he was going to be, he's not Fissure because he doesn't play the same position Fissure is. He can't go to somewhere, make them a contender on his own instantly just because DPS can't do that. At least that's my assertion. What do you got for a record for 2020?
I think I'm going to agree exactly here. I think I like I've got them like solidly at like a B. They're like a really, really solid B right now. And that almost, so I want to put them a little bit above 500. I think they have a little more wiggle room here. I think that they could be a dud. They could fall down to C or D. They could be an A. I do agree. I don't see them being an A plus or an S, unless something crazy happens. So, I do have them as a really solid B, maybe pushing B plus, but
Yeah, their support line was average and solid last year. It's going to stay the same.
right.
You can't have an average tank line and an average support line and be elite. I don't know that there's a DPS player that skilled. Otherwise, London would have done much better last year.
True. All right. 15 and 13 across the board for the Paris Eternal or High Noon Podcast. Let's move on and talk about the Dallas Fuel. I'll go over the changes real quick here. Traded OG to LA Gladiators for Decay. They signed Gamsu, and they also signed Doha, and they released Taimu. Or Taimu, I guess, is now playing for Envy, so not on the Dallas Fuel.
Not on a two-way, has no association with the Dallas Fuel
anymore. Signed by the org Envy.
Right. Plays for Team Envy and Contenders. Real quick, congratulations to Taimu. Honest to God, I think there's a very real chance he just saved his professional esports career as a player.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's the personality type to have transitioned into something like a desk position or, something like that. So it's probably smart to do what he could to extend his playing career as long as possible if this is the field he wants to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think if he'd played out this year on the Dallas Fuel roster, played a handful of maps when they were struggling or whatever, I just think we would have never heard from him again.
Right.
Now he goes down while he's still got a name. He stays inside the fan base, so he'll still have a lot of support.
Yep.
And he's just got to pop off and work on that hero pool and get a little bit of that swagger back. Taimu's a momentum, based player, and he needs to get his rhythm back, get his swing back. Love that he went down to tier 2 to do that. Probably instantly my favorite tier 2 player, just because I'm rooting for him for the story. Like I want to see him back. I love him doing it the right way. I'm a big fan of that. All right, last year the Dallas Fuel were 10 and 18. They were 15th place. These are some rough map percentages, Blevins. They were 52% on control, but only 29% on assault, 32% on escort, and 34% on hybrid. Those are terrible win percentages.
True.
I mean, we're getting far down in the standings, so they're gonna get worse. But I didn't expect 3 of them to be that bad here for the Dallas Fuel. Specifically losing maps: Hanamura, Horizon, Volskaya, Anubis, Havana, Junkertown, Gibraltar, Route 66, Dorado, Hollywood, Blizzard World, Numani, Nepal, and Ilios.
It would have just been quicker to say they're winning maps.
I'm probably for the next episode going to be going that direction. But I literally have been counting them, and if it was greater than 50%, I don't know that I counted Dallas specifically, but I think I did Houston and some of the other. Houston specifically are much better.
Right.
So maybe I should have for Dallas. Anyways, it's been a crazy offseason for the Fuel. I gave them a scathing review when we did our free agency primer.
Mm-hmm.
There was just, it looked like they had nothing but carryover players from seasons 1 and 2 that were just not at all worthy of a spot on an Overwatch League roster. It looked like Note was on his way out the door, and now all of a sudden Note is re-signed. Gamzu's back. They were a duo and for the Boston Uprising season 1 when they were actually legitimate. There just actually might be a DPS player with some carry potential on this team, Blevins.
Yeah.
They've got Decay and Doha here. Doha, I think, will be the DPS player, and I pencil him in that way because I have no faith in Zachary and AKM, who are the alternatives. Those guys are still here. AKM's going to get some amount of playtime. He announced that it's his last season. Hastro's not going to let him go out without touching the stage again.
Right.
Almost guaranteed he'll give him the chance for the redemption story, whether it's end of the year, start the year, I don't know. But I think the majority of the playtime will probably be Decay and Doha.
Right.
And Doha's an interesting story. He was the partner with Sparkle on Element Mystic, and I really think that, man, if that was me and Sparkle got all the hype Blevins, I'd be hungry. I'd be itching
Oh
to
yeah.
show that it was not him, that it was an us situation.
Mhm.
But before we forget, let's hear what Blackwatch has to say on Dallas.
So as far as call-ups from Tier 2, Dallas Fuel made one call-up, and that was the player from Element Mystic, and that was Doha. Primarily known for Sombra. That's basically all we really know of him. He played a little bit of Brigida back in Goats, but basically they were able to force Sombra Goats and make it work. So pretty nuts of a Sombra player, but for other picks, it's hard to tell.
Now, one of the things that I noticed about Doha, while being a phenomenal Sombra player, which I think Fuel really needs right now, is the fact that he was able to be super flexible. We saw him flexing over to the Doomfist when Sparkle needed to play the Pharah. Now, when you're filling the shoes of Sparkle on Doomfist, those are some pretty big shoes, and Doha was able to fill them on those moments when he had to play Doomfist. So I think Dallas ended up with an extremely flexible DPS player here that could help turn Dallas's season around.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback on what you said, we see that happen in college sports a lot, where you've got a team that has two really good college players. I'm thinking of basketball here, obviously, as my frame of reference. You've got a team that has really good players on it, and multiple of the players get drafted. There's always going to be that sort of rivalry, right? Or that it's like a kindred rivalry where you've played with each other. Maybe one player is ranked higher, maybe one player seems to be the star, but when you play against them or you want to show yourself off, like, you want to be that top one, especially if you have that sort of competitive edge, which I imagine a lot of these players do. So I definitely get that, especially in a situation like this where it's not, we didn't have to see call-ups this season, right?
Right.
It's not like last season where there was a whole new infusion of players and infusion of teams. It's like we got the same teams. We didn't need to see a bunch of call-ups, so the ones that get called up obviously have risen to the occasion.
Yeah, and that your parallel in sports is just happened in the NFL. Two tight ends playing the same position from the same school both got drafted in the first round in the draft. Noah Fant and TJ Hawkinson. Hawkinson went first, Fant goes second, and Fant had the better rookie year.
Nice.
And now it's like, what's going on? Who's better? We don't know. So it's a lot of fun, and the players chomp at the bit for that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just rivalry fuel. It's just motivation. It's easy. It's right there for them. So they love that. So we talked about all the positives here from the Dallas Fuel roster changes, what they've got. Let's look at some of the negatives. There's still a lot of dead money on this team. Okay. They did a good job clearing out what they could to be able to have room to bring in 6 players that maybe should be on stage. But Trill, I think, came in as no, he was there, right? Was he their backup? I don't know. Okay, I don't see him on the roster moves, but for whatever reason, I thought he was.
I think he was there during the season.
Yeah, because when OGE, he was who filled in for OGE when he took his little siesta.
Yep. I remember because I thought it was Thrill, like our buddy Thrill, and I'm like, what?
The VR creator who popped off.
True.
Congratulations. If you're into VR, check out Thrill Seeker VR on YouTube, I think is the name of the channel.
Yes.
So yeah, big shout outs to him. But yeah, AKM is here, Mickey's here, Harry Hook is here, Zachary's here. Sorry, Trill, I'm gonna throw you under the bus. Trill's here. He's fine. He's a good, I think, solid replacement level, main tank player. So not really a liability, but some of those guys are just straight up liabilities who have contracts inked through the year and refuse to let them go. And that's not a knock on them, right? They're not getting another one. So ride out what you got. The team could have opted to pay it out and free up the roster spot too, but they didn't. So stick around by all means, but Mickey's not coming in and saving the season. Harry Hook's not coming in and saving the year for the Dallas Fuel off the bench. So if these 6 don't work out that we kind of like and look like a solid roster, they have nothing on the back burner to go to.
Right.
And even more worrying to me is, unfortunately, Arrow loves to use all of the pieces that he's given. And he doesn't let silly things like stage performance or mechanical skill sway him in his decision making when he makes these choices.
Right.
It's definitely a rebuild year for Dallas. But what I think they've done here is really scrape together a roster that is, and this is a little sarcastic, bear with me, just dripping with adequacy. Okay, like they're just they are just so average. I can't even see straight. And
what's the quote? And the crowd goes mild.
And the crowd goes mild. Now, I don't want this to be like I'm blasting them, right? I'm making a little bit of a joke. This I really, really respect what Dallas did here. They're not going to phone it in for their fans. They're not going to just, okay, let's wheel Mickey out there to get run over every single game, and then we'll year. They're not doing that to their fan base, and I really, really commend them for that. That said, look to 2021 as a realistic target for an actually super competitive fuel roster. Very, very difficult to tier jump when you don't have that upside on the bench, that alternative to go to. When you know what that is, to me, it's very, very difficult to make a tier jump like that, at least a multiple tier jump, which, let's be honest, anybody we still have to talk about on this list, since we're going in standings order, needs to make multiple tier jumps in order to really make a splash. I think they'll find some good metas, and I think they'll have a very similar season to last year, because I felt they overperformed last year, and I'm just not penciling them in for an over this year. They don't have goats to lean on. They don't get to hide Zachary and Brig in Brig jail, and you don't, he was very good at Brig. Okay, I say lock him in Brig jail. He was very good there, but it was a support hero. He's a DPS player, right? So you don't have that anymore. So I think the deficiencies are easier to expose in the DPS meta for this team. They've filled in a lot of those gaps. Let's see exactly what it is. Don't have super, super high hopes. Blevins, after everything I just said, do you really view this roster any differently, or do you share my concerns about Arrow using everybody, or is the writing on the wall for Zach and A?
Unfortunately, I don't think the writing is on the wall for Zachary. I think people have a lot of confidence in him for whatever reason. He's still here. They keep playing him. They keep giving him chances. My concern, if I'm a Dallas Fuel fan, is like, okay, yes, I may be an AKM fan, and I'm biased because me and Bob hung out with AKM at BlizzCon a lot.
AKM's a really cool dude. We met him at Grand Finals.
We did. He is a really cool dude.
I hate that he's not popping off because I would love to.
I know. I really like him as a person, and he's a really cool dude to hang out with. But if I'm a Dallas fan, the thing I don't want to hear is that, like, a player who has been decent, like you said, dripping with mediocrity or averageness or whatever you said. Probably didn't say averageness because that's not a word. Adequacy. Aqueduccy. Got it. I don't want to see that player taking up a spot on my team. I want to see, if there's a player who I'm pretty sure is retiring next year, I want it to be a 60-year-old Tom Brady. I want it to be the Frank Gore of the Bills, who is the old man that you can put in, and he's got so much experience, and he's gonna get you that little bit every time. He's gonna get you something. I want to see
1 yard of carry in the playoffs when you give him the ball 8 times. Thanks for bringing it up, Blevs.
He did better before that. I want to see the washed up legend. I don't want to see a mediocre performance player over the last 2 seasons or 1.5 seasons, like sticking around for another year and eating a spot. I want to see an unknown prospect from contenders that no one knows about, that we're investing in, that we've got on the bench, and maybe there's rumors that he's really. I want to see the young talent there. I don't want to see, like, hire Mickey for your content team. That's what you're going to use. That's what people want to see. People don't care about what Mickey does on the stage unless he's doing a performance of some sort. They don't care about what he does in Overwatch. They want him to be the ambassador. They want him to be the guy that they do videos about. We want to hear what Mickey has to say because he's funny. Like, the fact that those players are taking up spots, if I'm a Dallas fan, is enraging to me, honestly. Like, great, I can like all those players, but I want to win. And I don't think that those players are on the team to help the team win. And if they're on the team and they're getting paid for and they're taking up a spot, but they're not helping the team win, then that's just actively bad. So I'm not, if I'm a Dallas Fuel fan, I'm not in a good spot here. And this is different than some of the other teams. We've seen even London, who blew up their roster. There's a lot of unknowns on there. That can be good. I don't think it's better than what they had, but that can be good. There's potential there. These players who are literally retiring next year, that's not potential. That's the exact opposite of that. And that's not what I want to see for a team. Again, me and you are thinking about this as a multi-year commitment to a team. You're going to be following this team for years and years and years to come. You're building with the team. You don't care. You do care what happens this year, but like you're thinking about the long-term expansion of the team. After this year, they cut those players. Like they're in a worse spot than a lot of teams are now. They're bringing in that new talent next year instead of developing it this year. So if I'm a Dallas Fuel fan here, I'm not very happy. I'm not like the team doesn't look great now. It doesn't look like it's going to be even like 2021, maybe. I look at 2021 as the starting, not the realization of what could have been for Dallas. So I don't know. I'd love to hear what Blazing Bob has to say about it, but we don't have a clip of him.
Sometime around the payload, we'll get that. We'll have to ask it of him early in the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a 10-18 record. It's the exact same record they had in 2019. As I've said previously, keeping the same record is an improvement in the standings, although a slight one. So yeah, I expect them to gain a little ground, but they're not, by virtue of like, I expect some of the teams that divested this season to fall below them, not necessarily that they're making strides, or I think there'll be a lot of what they were last year, to be honest. And I could be very hyped about Zachary. I could be right there with some of you Dallas fans if they didn't keep using him and keep letting him do what the Valiant did with KSF and keep him on the bench, keep him in the wings, develop the talent, and then unleash him when he's ready, not try to justify your decision to sign him to begin with by throwing him out there. Like you're trying to me, they're going to spend a lot of time trying to prove themselves right, and it's going to lead to losses because they were probably just wrong about those players. Not necessarily, but probably. What do you got him at?
I'm honestly kind of surprised that you have him at a slightly better record than last year. I'm not even giving him that. I'm giving him a 9-19 record. I've got no faith in this team, and I don't even. And like I said, I don't have faith in them next year either. So this is what looks to me I mean, okay, maybe
Gamzu doesn't take breaks. If you want an explanation for my record,
I was gonna say, yeah, okay, Gamzu, and no, that is an improvement. Okay, I can buy into that. That is good. And I'm still not sold.
I don't hate the 6 they're gonna put out there on the stage. I just severely dislike the rest of it, and I don't have any reason to think what their 6 is actually good enough.
And 6 is not enough. We saw with Florida, 6 don't work, man. And I don't even want, like, if this is, and I guess this is just a difference in style. If I have a player that's like, this is my last season, I'd be like, no, I think last year was your last season, actually, bud. But that's not the way the world works. So I don't want to be playing any of those players. Like you said, I actively don't want to be playing any of those players that they have on their bench. I think it's an actual like objective downgrade to play those players, and we've seen, and especially with some of these new metas and whatnot, like, and just the different style of managing the team, 6 players is not gonna fly for this. So I'm sticking with it, even though I do have faith in the 6, maybe a little bit more than I had from the players last year. I'm going with 9-19. I don't think that they're making much of an improvement this year. All right, let's move on and talk about some Houston Outlaws. So, Death, I'm just gonna mute myself for the next 10 or so minutes. I'm just gonna let you go off.
Can you just pepper in my song?
Maybe. Can I? Can I? Oh,
I don't
yeah, I
know,
can.
but
There we go.
I was gonna say
We got it.
terrible planning if that wasn't ready to. All right, so the Houston Outlaws released Arhan. They released Bonnie. They lost Jake due to retirement. They acquired Hydration from the Los Angeles Gladiators. They re-signed Boink. They acquired Blase from Boston. They signed Repel from Vancouver. They signed Mecco. Signed from the New York Excelsior. And of course, very last minute, and in fact, should have been in the news section. But we had Jexy signing as well for the Houston Outlaws. So managed to use that 12th spot, 12th spot that Jake opened up for them when he moved into casting. Last year, this was a 9-19 team, the 16th seed. They did have a stage 3 playoff experience with a first round exit. Remember those Dallas map win percentages? How is this team possibly worse in the standings, Blevins? They were 55% win rate on control, 54% win rate on assault, 49% on escort, and a paltry 35% on hybrid. Their hybrid percentages like the Dallas average across them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand the records, but anyways, we don't have to.
I'm legitimately wondering how the math works out on that, but nonetheless,
the clutch is, I think, the answer to that question. But they were sub 50% on Anubis, Rialto. Did I actually fill these out? Now I'm doubting myself because I stopped doing percentages at a certain point. So bear with me one moment. Anyways, we'll skip the map percentages here because I don't trust them, to be perfectly honest. There should probably be more. So my Outlaws were one of, if not the busiest off-season teams in the league this year. They brought in the new coach as well as reworked a big chunk of the roster. Muma has been a standout player for them for 2 seasons and was a strong choice for the piece they wanted to build around. Off Tank has been inconsistent. I love you, Cool Matt. I'll never stop loving you. You needed to be upgraded. Cool Matt and Spree were basically being swapped pretty freely between the two of them last year. Mecco is now here, and he represents something they have not had in the off-tank position once in their history, and that's elite level talent at the position. Not to harp too much on I thought Cool Matt and Spree got kind of a bad rap, but they don't hold a candle to Mecco, who is, I think, one of the top 3 off-tank players in the league. So this is a massive upgrade for the Houston roster. As far as support goes, they've been at the very best average, I think, in Overwatch League in the support line. I've long been a supporter of Raucus as a flex support that you can win with if you got the right roster around him, and not for nothing, but he never left the stage during the Overwatch World Cup win that the U.S. had this year. He can play Ana better than at least half of the Overwatch League, and neither Flame, myself, or any of the World Cup selection committees have cared at all about the public opinion on that topic. So I expect we will still see some Raucus and some Ana-based metas. I do think he's proven to lack a little bit in his Zenyatta play, getting caught out of position, picked off. Just been a bit of a liability, but Repel's here with his former coach over from Vancouver. Seems to fill this gap very well, and at a bare minimum gives them a very viable option to go to if Raucus isn't succeeding, assuming Raucus is the starter. To me, it's meta dependent, coin flip on who's going to start based off meta, things like that. We just haven't seen a ton of Repel. He's been in the league, but he was on a bench all year, right? So we don't know exactly what we've got here. So hard to know exactly what that whole dynamic will be, right? Raucus versus Repel is I think a position battle to watch very closely going into the year. And main support, Jexay was a very late addition, as I said. All last season, I really thought the problem for Houston, as I said it many times, shot calling. They seem to have an in-game leadership problem, and I really hope Jexay can fill that role on the bilingual roster. It's not an easy task, but we'll see if he's able to do it. That's how you have map win percentages like that. The map 5 record that they do when things got crazy, when there was no major voice. There was no leader to step up, direct people, tell them what to do, take control. That's what they need. Hopefully Jexe is able to bring that, because it's the right position to have it. At DPS, man, they just wanted to avoid their Achilles heel of the past 2 years, I'm pretty sure, here, Blevins. Whether it was missing an adequate tracer player or an adequate brig player, they just always came up short. And DPS, not even the quality of the players there, just you knew they couldn't play these things going into it.
Yep.
So then the meta shifted and they didn't have it. I dare you to find something Hydration can't play. Go ahead and try. And if you think you found one, run it through Blaze's hero pool, and now you definitely don't have a DPS character that the Outlaws cannot field with, I think, at least adequacy here. So pretty excited about that. And in a pinch, these guys have both, like, Hydration's played main tank for the Gladiators at times on maps. So Muma has a backup without having a backup. And we've also seen Blase play off tank, I think, for Boston late last year. I hope we don't see that. We've got Mako. Let's use them. But just to give you an idea of how flexible these guys are, they've been able to step in on the Overwatch League stage and play the other roles, and didn't stick out like a sore thumb at a bare minimum. So very, very flexible. And I think that should just about put an end to any 0-7 stages, or there won't be stages anymore. But no, 0-7, 7 loss streaks, those don't need to happen anymore for Houston. This is just very much so not the same Outlaws team that we've seen the last 2 years, for better or for worse. So my question for you here, Blevins, now that I'm done reading my book I wrote earlier today, are you nervous at all about the bilingual roster causing this team to drop in the standings this year? There's people in Discord telling me that this team's going to get worse after the acquisitions that they've made. Is that in your range of possible outcomes for the Houston Outlaws in 2020?
I'll start with this. Even if that was in my range, I wouldn't be worried about it, because I don't care. I hope they do lose. Screw them for taking Meko.
Can't have him he's ours forever.
Well, if that's the case,
jersey, just to spite you,
then I hope that you lose, and it doesn't make me nervous. It makes me happy to think that it's possible. But no, I mean, again, not to harken on it, but I think the bilingual roster is going to be the industry standard if it isn't already. Houston has already dealt with that, at least in with some of their players. Arhan last year, like it's happened. I mean, not at the same level, but it's happened. I can't imagine a world, although it would be Houston. Houston would be the type of team that would squander something like someone like Meko. I can't imagine a team getting worse with the addition of Meko. Especially, like you said, over Cool Matt, who has been fine, but has not been that high caliber off tank. Not been.
Stats suggested fine, eyeball iffy at times. Yeah,
right.
And this is nowhere near that. This is
big upgrade. Now, the one thing, nothing to do with, or very little to do with language barrier. I think Meko played with the NYXL team for so long, had those synergies with the players that he was playing with.
Sure.
More so than he's going to have. Obviously, he's on a new team, not necessarily speaking a different language. Maybe that plays a little bit of it, but he's with new players and is with a new team. So I don't imagine he's going to have the same synergy with Muma as he had with Mono. So because he hasn't played with Muma for 4 years, it's going to take some amount of time, right?
Sure.
But that's all about getting reps in. It's all about practice. Yes, we are talking about practice. But that combo is very powerful. So I don't think the bilingual thing, like just throw that right in the garbage, please. Like that's just it's such a dumb argument. I don't even really want to entertain it anymore. Like it's not even a real conversation to have.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. When I look at the roster here, and I think when I get to anticipated record, people are going to be surprised. I really don't think
I was surprised when I saw it.
I don't think I'm artificially high on Houston. Fairly decent handle on.
You might be artificially high when making
here.
this rating.
No comment. But I was at work. I wasn't. But yeah, so to me, there's a ton of upside here with the moves Houston's made and what they've done.
Mhm.
They have the ability. They brought in the talent to jump up multiple tiers.
Yep.
They're the one that I think could legitimately challenge and become closer to that elite team. I mean, maybe like the Gladiators have been, where like you look at them and their records there, and you want to say they're going to make that jump, but maybe they just
They've giant slain
like,
in season 1.
Sure, I think that's in the range of outcomes to me. I don't see. I'm with you. I don't see the bilingual roster as much of a challenge here. You show me a bilingual roster that really struggled and really, really underperformed, and I will show you the Florida Mayhem. Okay, that's not on the players. That's not on the bilingual nature of the roster. Okay, it's when people do the Paris thing and they don't go sign the best players and they try to force it based off regions or languages you speak that you see underperformances, or bad teams are just going to be bad. Some of them are going to be bilingual. That's by nature of whole rosters bilingual. But this team had Arhan for a while. They're those players that are still there are at least practiced in the effort to incorporate Korean speakers into the thing. So there's something to it. Harsha just came from a fully Korean speaking roster where he was coaching. So to me, that's not at play. What could make them worse in the standings, it is possible to me, is that like, what if Harsha just sucks? This is a first-time head coach. We don't know how good he is. I'm excited. I think he's got a really good chance. But if he comes in and, sorry, Thorne, has a Freddie Kitchens experience for this team in this year, and they just, despite all the talent, despite what they brought in the offseason, they just don't actually get better. Like, it's a coaching failure. It's not a players. It's not a communications.
Right.
And if they do have a major communication problem by virtue of the bilingual roster, guess what? They had a major communication problem last year and everybody spoke English. It's just because they didn't have that in-game leader.
Right.
So the worst case scenario to me is they have all the same problems and better talent, and that should still be worth a couple extra wins no matter what at the end of the day. So I really don't see it as a scenario worth giving much credence to. When I see people drop them in the standings, I'm just kind of rolling my eyes and assuming you hate Houston and or want them to fail, which is fine. I don't care, but if you're honestly looking at it and you're trying to evaluate where this roster is and compare it to where they were, and you think they're worse off, I really sincerely question your judgment.
Yeah.
Unless you're just trying to troll me, and in which case I absolutely applaud you.
Yes.
It's worth it.
And also screw you. But yeah, did you give your
14 and 14. I just, until I see it go one way or the other. Now 14 and 14, you're shocked because that doesn't sound great. I didn't want to give it to the other team, but in reality, that's right. That's 10 seed, right? That's like 10 or 11 seed.
Right.
So it's squarely in the play-ins, and I think that represents the minimum bump here that they can kind of get from that. And then maybe they find some bad metas, maybe they use, like, there could be coaching, we really don't know. No matter what, I think Houston's going to start kind of slow and then get better and better as the season goes on. And I think I'm baking that into it a little bit, right? I think they'll be better than 10th in the standings by the time the end of the season gets here, but that doesn't mean they won't be 10th in the standings.
Once again, I think you were baking something when you made this rating, or you were baked. Yeah, I mean, I think you are doing the thing where you are artificially lowering your score because you don't want people to think that you're homering, which is fine. I think 14 and 14 for this team, like, they have Meko is on this team, okay?
Sure.
He's a traitor, he's a filthy traitor, and he's dead to me forever, but he's still a great Overwatch League player. I can't having them be at the cusp of the play-ins, I just don't see it. I think that they're gonna make a big improvement here, as much as I don't want to see it. I'm gonna go with 16 and 12 here, maybe a little bit on the optimistic side, but I think that's still in the middle of their possibilities. Like, I think they can be, like you said, that sort of LA Gladiators, like Kingslayer-esque. Like, they're gonna be like, I mean, they did it last year, right? They beat the Shock, if I recall correctly.
Yeah,
they beat the Shock. Like they've had those performances. I think all the changes that they've made in the offseason have been good for them. And I see an improvement here for Houston.
Yeah, I think the writing's on the wall. There certainly should be an improvement. And for what it's worth, I put them at 16-12 initially when I wrote it,
Mm-hmm.
and then followed the slow starting train of thought and basically just minus two'd it from there to kind of get me to my number. Because I go, what do I think they're going to be? Okay, and then all right, so they're going to start slow. We'll drop one or two off, and just it felt right. But I do think I'm on like the low end of what I think is the reasonable expectation for the team. And like I said, I think they'll be better than their record by the end of the season because of some early struggles. So that might be 10th in the standings, but if I'm power ranking playoff teams going into play-ins, I could see them being a top 5-ish area team to 8th place, somewhere in that 5 to 8 range. I think is where I think they'll probably be end of season, like an upper half team for sure.
Yep. Sounds good. Okay, we are going to move on to the Toronto Defiant, and I will go through the changes here that we've got for the Defiant. A lot of roster moves here as well. So, start off, they released Gods, released I Am 37. He made the full circle. He went from no name to Overwatch League in a week and made it a whole season, or most of a season. But did not quite make it to the next. They also released Sharik. They have re-signed Roki. They released Yakpung. They signed Kariv, Agilities, Ivy, traded. They signed Kariv, signed Agilities, traded Ivy for Beast, formerly Beast Halo. Signed Surefour, signed Kellex, signed Nevix, and most recently put Mangachu on a 2-way contract. So a lot of changes here for Defiant. I mean, the biggest ones, obviously, we talked about when they happened, the Surefour signing, Agility signing, and really, another big one that we've talked about, Death, is the Yakpung really being a sort of a crutch, really, for the team. Like, he was just a, really didn't perform, and you could tell, like, there was a lot of inexperience in Yakpung and wasn't really making those strides. And he did get better at times, but it was really sort of a really major weak point for Toronto and Yakpung. So as much as the other signings have been, the signings were good, the releasing of some players, I think, kind of was a shakeup that the team needed to really point them in the right direction.
Yeah, I don't know how much of my notes you read, but man, if hype led to this would just be the greatest team ever. I really wish I could kind of get myself back up in there. Anybody who doesn't know, I stepped away. I have no idea what Blevin said, so
I just went through the roster changes.
Oh, okay, gotcha. If hype led to wins, we could just crown the champ, Blevs. Unfortunately, it doesn't. So let's look at the roster a little bit. I do think there's some potential weaknesses. I don't want there to be, but I think there are. Specifically, at probably the worst spots to have them, support and tank. Beast is very unproven. I don't think he played in the last season of Contenders. So he was kind of sitting idle on the Philly bench, the Fusion University bench for a little while there. But he is a solid prospect. I basically think he just couldn't go to Korea with them. I don't know. Let's real quick before we get too deep into it. Let's hear what Blackwatch has to say. They'll clear it up.
All right, so although they completely re-bolstered their entire roster, the Toronto Defiant only picked up one player from Tier 2, and that is Beast, formerly known as Beast Halo. Played main tank for Fusion University for, I think, over a year, and was probably one of the most consistently top-notch players we saw coming out of NA. I think this guy is going to be absolutely incredible. Thorne and I both agree here. There's some doubters because he hasn't quite played in a little while, but I think I think pretty quickly we're gonna put those doubts to rest.
Yeah, just mechanically, Beast was one of the best main tanks coming out of NA. He was surrounded by some phenomenal players, but Beast really showed that he could compete at the highest level. Just under pressure constantly when they were doing the lands with Fusion University. Mechanically sound great Winston. Decent Orisa and Reinhardt. But I think he really shines when it comes to the Winston play. Really hoping to get to see him be a big part of this roster going forward.
It's a little bit higher hopes from Blackwatch Report for Beast Halo, and they've obviously seen him more than we have, but still unproven, and Deathblow's still muted. So
well, sometimes I gotta sneeze. But you know, the one thing I remember most about Beast from before he sat for a while, and I do think he couldn't go to Korea, is why he did sit. So it wasn't like he was benched or anything like that. I remember those two being very specifically very, very high on him and wanting him to get in last year, or at least at a midway point during the season, something along those lines. So not at all.
Black? Did they have him on? They might have had him on. I think they did, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm pretty sure that he was on an episode of Blackwatch Report.
B-dub bump. So I don't have any issues with anything they said other than Thornrain said he proved he can play at the highest level, and that's hard to do when you've never played at the highest level to me.
Right.
But that's a philosophical difference in how you look at prospects. And like I said, he is a very, very good prospect. There's just no alternative. Right. There's just no backup plan. And that to me is what's very nerve-wracking about him as a signing. Now we take a look at Nevix, another guy been riding the bench for a long time, and he's earned the right to prove that he has what it takes to start in the league. But like Beast, there's just no backup here. And so they're risky prospects to me, and there is no backup plan. And I really thought maybe they'd kind of learned that lesson a little bit last year. I mean, they had the extra tank players, right? But what I wanted them to learn was how important that position is and how bad it can hurt you when you get it wrong. And so maybe don't go in with all your eggs in the Beast basket. If I did have to have like a contenders call up for this team, he might be the one I'd choose. But I'd also have somebody there to play backup. And where did Gods go? I want my memes back. I want my backup off tank. I want everything. You're right. I want the backups here. It makes me nervous. So the other position that I think is a little iffy, support. Never been the biggest Kareev fan as far as having him as a flex support player. That said, he's never been a big liability for the Valiant when he was there. They seem to play better with him. I'm very open to listen. You don't have to be a world killer mechanically, right? You don't have to be Jonak to find success in the Overwatch League in the flex support position. It helps, but you don't have to be that. And I don't have much negative to say about Kareev, but he doesn't excite me, right? He doesn't send me running to buy a jersey, which is fine and could still be good. But I am a little more nervous about Kellex. Been vocally critical of him, and not just because of where he played. Through his time at Boston, I thought he was a better Mercy player than a Lucio player at times, at least. I don't know, he's just been very up and down, but main support when the team is very up and down becomes very, very difficult to analyze. I've kind of always been in that camp with main support. So I'm open to that, and thankfully Roki is still around in a two-way deal, can step in if things do get rough in the back line. And for DPS, listen, you guys know what agility can do. You got to see plenty of Logics last season. These guys are still here. Logics will put some pressure on that Canuck DPS duo to keep them honest. Mangachu, I think, renegotiated down to a two-way contract. So probably going to see less of him, which is, I mean, sad. I want my Torb, man. But it feels safe to say with the DPS they have here that heads will be clicked, Blevins. Heads will be clicked this season by Toronto. So we're both fans of this team. We both want to see them succeed in the biggest way possible. We'll be at the home games. I don't want to watch them season, Blevins.
True.
what is the percentage chance you'd give them to finish inside the top 6 and not even need play-ins to make it to the postseason?
The top 6?
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's see. San Francisco, Vancouver, New York,
That's
Seoul.
30% of the teams. Is top 6 represents the top 30%.
Right. Oh, I'm just trying to think of teams that are
Sure.
that have their spots in my mindset.
Yep.
San Francisco, Vancouver, New York,
Houston.
Seoul.
You still haven't said Houston.
I know. That is correct. I have not. Yeah, I mean, percentage they get the top 6 without having to do playoffs. If I had to give that percentage, I'm giving it a 15%. I think 85 out of 100 times they're not going to finish in the top 6, but I think that there's 15 times they might.
Yeah, listen, the high-risk players represent a very high upside as well, right? There's a reason they're risk. If they didn't have the upside, they'd just be bad prospects.
Right.
So it's certainly in the range of outcomes that this team does live up to the hype, does fulfill expectations and pop off. Very much so hoping for that. I'd have ballparked it at 10%. But I think we're kind of in the same ballpark. It would take a lot. It would take some over performances. But I think we've at bare minimum flipped the script from last year, right?
Yes.
And we're now going to be much happier watching one of our teams play here. The one team we get to root for side by side and play nice with each other about. It would be great if they could win a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, I'm definitely really excited. I mean, I want to see what Nevix has. Right. I want to know. He's, to me, is like the poster boy for all the guys sitting on these benches right now. Right. And it's funny because you have some of them that get such a bad rap because the team's losing and they're on the bench. But there's some of those bench players on losing teams that are better than their starters.
Yeah.
And we're not going to ever see them get that chance unless the Nevixes that come from the winning teams do pop off.
Right.
And do have a lot of success. So to me, there's your linchpin, the tank line, the Nevix of it all, the beast. They're what swings us wildly into a very successful season versus a very bad season. And I think the whole range of outcomes is very possible for Toronto here. It makes me very nervous and very excited at the same time, which is a pretty good place to be as a Toronto Defiant fan. Certainly better from and I think they were 5-2, 2-5, 1-6, 0-7.
You might be right.
How their season went.
You very well may be correct.
Because last year, let's see, they were 8-20, and they had the 5-2.
Definitely wasn't what I said.
Yeah, see, I knew that when you said it, but I wanted to let you go. I knew I had it down. But yeah, 5-2 stage 1, 8-20 overall. So just 3 wins in the final 3 stages of the year.
Yikes!
The collapse was real. Really hard to watch. Okay, and
sure
thankfully we don't have that anymore. I'm skipping the map data. It's not relevant for this roster since the whole roster blew up.
Oh, one thing I wanted to clear up. Thorn had a clarification. They didn't have Beast on the show. They had Elk. That's who I was thinking of from Fusion University. So, not super relevant, but just so you know.
Yeah, I mean, they got me a little more optimistic about Beast, but this is another one. And maybe it's subconsciously lowering it to not be a home. I don't know. I'm going to put them around that same ballpark I put Houston in. I'm going with 13-15. I think it's going to be a slow start situation here as well. They're in a similar boat to Houston with, I think, a little bit less upside though. So I think they've got to be,
it's close.
They've got to be in that ballpark, but a little lower than them. So I'm going to drop them down to 13.
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather be dead than have them lower than your Houston score. So I'm going to give them the 15-13 because out of sheer principle. But I do agree. I think. I mean, there is for the same reasons we talked about the home games for Sold, the home games for Surefour and the Canadian team are going to be big. Also, we're going to be there, so obviously they're going to have a more support than a lot of other teams.
It's going to be a loud and very hostile fan base, at least in 2 of the chairs in the arena.
I think we can get Root Bear to get some chants going. I know he'll.
Well, oh man, we're going to have so much fun at these Toronto
We're
games with Root Bear.
Pretty close to Root Bear section too.
Oh man, We're gonna have to talk to somebody. I don't know. Root beer can sit in our laps, like one on each knee. You can put a cheek on your knee and a cheek on my knee if we have to. We're hanging out with Root Bear a lot.
Oh yeah,
at the Toronto homestands.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen for sure. But yeah, overall very optimistic. I do think they do have some pop off potential. Like I said, I'm hoping for plans. That's my goal right here. My realistic goal for the team. Let's be a play-in contender team. If we do better than that, that's great. But I want to, obviously I want to see more than just incremental improvement. I really want to see them be like a play-in team. That's, I think, is reasonable, and it's an achievable goal. So definitely something I want. But that's going to be the end of our episode for today. Death, any last minute stuff before we go?
No, that's it for me. Again, just another call out. The PC's done. I can start working on stuff. I can start learning. I need some. I've still got a month before the season starts. What do I need to learn? What do I need to know? What kind of content do you guys want to see put on YouTube under the High Noon banner? That's what I'm looking for. So also, when I do start churning it out, please watch it and give feedback, because I want to grow. I want to adapt. It'll be just like the show. I'll be real bad to start. I'll stay pretty bad, but you guys will watch anyways, and I'll never understand why.
Yep.
And and then we'll get rolling. So it'll be great.
Gonna be great. Put them to work. It's gonna be great. So put them to work. Okay, that's gonna be it, guys. Thank you everyone for listening and watching. You can find us everywhere on the internet. High Noon Podcast, highnoonpodcast.com, twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast, Twitter at High Noon Podcast. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/High Noon Podcast. And the best place to find us and all of the links and everything from the community, discord.me/High Noon Podcast, going to be the best place for you to go. But that is going to be it for the show. Thank you again for listening and watching. For Deathblow, I am the Blevins, and remember, guys, it's High Noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time, till I find mine.
What should we do for an outro? Okay, what team do you think is going to be the most improved this season? Put a 1 in Discord and at Kyle Wynn for Houston, and put a 2 in Discord at Kyle Wynn for Toronto. Those are the only 2 options, by the way.